When the news quietly dropped that Tyrus just got married, most folks did a double take. Not because anyone thought he wouldn't ever settle down, but because of how unexpected, private, and honestly fascinating the whole thing turned out to be. In an era where celebrity weddings are blasted across social media with drone shots, exclusive interviews, and million-dollar sponsorships, this one felt different. Almost secret. And that only made people more curious. So today, we're talking about Tyrus, the man you've seen towering over wrestling rings, dominating TV panels with that unmistakable presence, and carving out a lane that very few people ever managed to walk successfully. And yes, we're talking about the woman who just became his wife, and why this marriage means more than it might look like at first glance. Now, before we even get to the wedding, you have to understand where Tyrus comes from. His story has never been a smooth, red carpet kind of rise. It's been rugged, complicated at times, deeply painful. He's spoken openly over the years about a childhood marked by instability, identity struggles, and feeling like he never quite fit into one box. That sense of being an outsider followed him for a long time, even as he grew into a physically dominant figure. When he entered the world of professional wrestling, he wasn't just another big guy with muscles. He had presence, the kind that fills a room before he says a word. Wrestling gave him visibility, but it also gave him scars physically and mentally. Long nights on the road, injuries, the constant pressure to perform a version of yourself that may not fully reflect who you are off camera. And then came television, a whole different battlefield. Tyrus surprised people when he transitioned into political commentary and mainstream media. Some embraced him instantly. Others questioned him relentlessly. He became a lightning rod praised by some, criticized by others, but almost impossible to ignore. Through it all, he projected confidence, humor, strength. But here's the thing most viewers never see. Behind the camera, behind the larger-than-life persona, Tyrus has always been intensely private about his personal life, especially when it comes to love. For years, rumors floated around. Speculation came and went. People tried to connect dots that were never meant to be connected, but Tyrus rarely fed into it. No public relationship drama, no tabloid-friendly oversharing. And in a culture where celebrities often monetize their personal lives, that silence spoke volumes, which is exactly why this marriage caught so many people off guard. According to those close to him, this wasn't a sudden decision. It wasn't a whirlwind romance that exploded into a headline. This was something that grew quietly, steadily, and intentionally. The kind of relationship built far away from flashing cameras and social media commentary and his new wife. She's not chasing fame, not trying to steal the spotlight. In fact, that may be the most important part of this entire story. People who know the couple say she's grounding, sharp, in a way that doesn't need to announce itself. She understands the weight that comes with being married to someone constantly in the public eye. She's perfectly comfortable staying out of it. That balance, especially for someone like Tyrus, is rare. Friends describe their dynamic as deeply respectful. Not flashy, not performative, just solid. And that solidity matters because Tyrus's life has been anything but predictable. Think about it. He's lived multiple lives in one: wrestler, commentator, author, public figure. Each role comes with its own audience, its own expectations, and its own pressures. Being married in that environment requires trust on a level most people never have to think about. Trust that your partner understands the criticism, the noise, the misinterpretations, and won't let it seep into the foundation of the relationship. That's why those close to the couple say this marriage feels different. Not like a headline moment, but like a chapter turning. The wedding itself, by all accounts, intimate, purposefully low-key. No over-the-top spectacle. No attempt to trend. Just close friends, family, and a focus on meaning rather than optics. In a strange way, that made it even more powerful. Because when someone who's spent years being scrutinized finally chooses something quiet, it usually means they've found peace. And here's where the story gets even more interesting. If you've followed Tyrus long enough, you know he often talks about growth, about learning when to fight and when to listen. about strength, not just being physical, but emotional. This marriage seems to reflect that evolution. It's not about proving anything to anyone. It's about choosing stability after chaos, choosing partnership after years of standing alone. Some fans have said they see a difference already. A subtle one, but noticeable. A calmer energy, a lighter tone. Whether that's perception or reality, it's hard to ignore that people tend to change when they feel secure. And let's be real, Hollywood media and entertainment aren't exactly known for lasting marriages. The odds are brutal. Schedules clash. Egos collide. Public pressure eats away at private moments, which is why so many celebrity unions burn bright and fade fast. That's what makes this one intriguing. Tyrus didn't marry someone to amplify his brand. He married someone who exists outside of it, and that choice alone tells you a lot. There's also something quietly poetic about it. A man whose career has been built on being seen, discussed, debated, and dissected, choosing a partner who doesn't need any of that to feel complete. It's almost like the ultimate counterbalance. Of course, the internet did what the internet always does. Curiosity exploded. Comment sections filled up. People wanted photos, details, backstories. But the couple didn't rush to feed the machine. And in today's world, that restraint feels almost rebellious, because not everything meaningful needs an audience. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. This marriage isn't about shocking glamour or dramatic reveals. It's about timing. About two people finding each other when they're ready, not when it's convenient. Profitable or headline-friendly for Tyrus, who has spent much of his life proving he belongs in spaces that weren't designed for him. This moment feels earned. Not loud, not flashy. Just real, and as fans, viewers, and observers, we're left with a rare thing in celebrity culture, something that feels authentic. So, yes, Tyrus just got married. And while the internet may keep searching for spectacle, the real story is quieter, and maybe that's exactly the point, because sometimes the most surprising love stories aren't the ones that scream for attention. They're the ones that don't need it at all. And the more you sit with it, the more this marriage starts to feel like a turning point rather than just a personal milestone, because when someone like Tyrus chooses to let people know he's married but still keeps most of the details, Garda tells you he's no longer living for validation. He's living for alignment, for peace, for something that doesn't need applause to feel real. People forget that public figures age emotionally just like everyone else. The things that matter at 25 don't always matter at 40 or 50. The hunger for attention fades. The desire for stability grows louder. And for someone who has spent years being talked about, misunderstood, and sometimes reduced to a caricature, choosing a quiet, grounded partnership can feel like reclaiming control. Those close to him say his wife sees him not as a personality, not as a character on TV, not as a former wrestler or a political voice, but simply as a man. And that kind of love hits differently, especially for someone whose entire adult life has been lived under a microscope. There's also something important to understand about Tyrus's sense of loyalty. He's talked before about trust not coming easily to him, about how long it takes for him to truly let someone into his inner circle. So the fact that he chose marriage, something that requires vulnerability on the deepest level, speaks volumes about the bond they've built. This wasn't about image. This wasn't about timing a headline. This was about commitment when no one was watching. And maybe that's why so many fans reacted the way they did, not with shock, but with genuine happiness. Because even people who don't agree with him on everything can recognize growth when they see it. They can recognize when someone seems settled, grounded, less combative, more at ease. Marriage doesn't magically fix a person, but it can anchor them. It can give structure to chaos. And for someone who has lived through so many extremes, that anchor can be life-changing. What's also interesting is how little this marriage seems to have changed his public behavior and how much it may have changed his private world. He's still outspoken, still confident, still unapologetically himself. But there's a sense that he's no longer carrying everything alone, and that matters more than people realize. In Hollywood and media culture, relationships often feel transactional. Who benefits more? Who gains exposure? Who gets the spotlight next? This one doesn't fit that mold. There's no brand crossover, no forced visibility, just two people choosing to move forward together without inviting the world into every step. That kind of decision takes strength. It also takes clarity, because when you've been through enough storms, you stop romanticizing chaos. You stop confusing intensity with love. You start valuing calm conversations, shared routines, and someone who understands your silence just as much as your words. And that seems to be exactly what this marriage represents. So while people online may keep asking, who is she? Or why so private? The real answer might be simple, because some things are better protected than promoted, and in a culture addicted to oversharing. That choice feels almost revolutionary. Tyrus didn't just get married. He chose a different pace, a different priority, a different definition of success. And maybe that's the most surprising part of all. Because sometimes the biggest plot twist isn't scandal or spectacle, it's peace. And the more people reflect on it, the more this marriage feels like the kind of decision that only comes after a long, internal journey. Because Tyrus isn't someone who rushes into anything lightly. His career alone proves that. He didn't take the easy path. He didn't follow a neat, predictable trajectory. Every phase of his life has required him to adapt, defend himself, stand firm in who he is. As if when that came with backlash, that kind of life can harden a person. It can make you guarded. It can make you keep people at arm's length. And yet, marriage requires the opposite. It requires openness, patience, the willingness to be seen when you're not performing. That's why those close to him say this relationship didn't just change his routine. It changed his rhythm. Away from the cameras, away from the debates and commentary, there's a quieter version of Tyrus that very few people ever get to see. The husband, the partner, the man who doesn't need to dominate a room because he finally feels at home in it. And his wife, by all accounts, understands that balance perfectly. She isn't intimidated by his presence, and she isn't dazzled by his resume. She doesn't compete with his world. She complements it. And that's something money, fame, or influence can't buy. It's easy to underestimate how rare that is, especially in circles where attention is currency and privacy is treated like a liability. But this marriage seems built on the opposite philosophy. Less exposure, more intention, less noise, more meaning. And maybe that's why the reveal felt so understated. No dramatic rollout, no long explanations, just a quiet confirmation that life has moved forward. Because sometimes the strongest statements don't need words. There's also something symbolic about the timing. Tyrus has reached a stage in his life where he's already proven what he needed to prove. He's survived criticism. He's carved out a unique space for himself. He's no longer chasing acceptance, he's choosing fulfillment. Marriage, in that sense, becomes less about fairy tales and more about partnership. About building something steady in a world that constantly shifts. And fans, whether they realize it or not, can sense that. They may not know his wife personally. They may never see wedding photos or intimate moments. But they can feel the difference when someone has found their footing. When someone is no longer reacting to the world but responding to it. That's the energy this chapter carries. Not loud, not defensive, just confident. And it's worth noting that this kind of confidence doesn't come from ego. It comes from security, from knowing that no matter what happens publicly, there's a private space that remains untouched. That's powerful. In an industry where relationships often collapse under pressure, choosing privacy isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's protection. It's saying this matters too much to turn into content. So while headlines may move on and social media finds something new to obsess over, This marriage will continue quietly in the background, doing what the best relationships do, strengthening the people inside them. And maybe years from now, people will look back and realize this wasn't just a celebrity wedding announcement. It was a turning point, a moment where a man known for his strength chose stability, where a public figure chose peace, where a life built in the spotlight found something real in the shadows. And honestly, that might be the most compelling love story of all. Disclaimer: the content in this video is based on publicly available information, media sources, and opinions. It is created for entertainment and educational purposes only. We do not claim or guarantee that every detail is 100% accurate.